As I drove my wife and her friends to a spa hotel, she laughingly said from the back seat, "He's like a dog from a shelter. You just feed him and he's all yours. Comfortable, trained." There was silence in the car. Then an explosion of laughter. At the door, she only said, "Wash the sheets. They smell like you again." I drove home in sepulchral silence. Yesterday she came back, crying, desperate, begging to talk. "My name's Erin. I'm 34, married to Jenna for just over 8 years now. Until last weekend, I thought we had a decent life together. Not perfect, we've had our share of arguments and compromises like any long-term couple, but nothing that ever made me question the foundation of our relationship. That all changed in a single day. It was Friday morning. Same routine as always. I woke up at 5:30 a.m., brewed some coffee, and scrolled through news and weather while Jenna slept in upstairs. She always says my early starts throw off her sleep cycle, so we've had separate morning routines for years. I never argued with her about it. Figured, whatever keeps the peace. Around 8 a.m., I heard music pounding from her Bluetooth speaker upstairs. A playlist she always blasts when she's packing. She was getting ready for her long-awaited spa weekend with her 3 best friends, Natalie, Brooke, and Heather. It had been on the calendar for months, and I was honestly glad she was taking some time for herself. She works hard, and everyone deserves a break now and then. When Jenna came downstairs, she had her overnight bag slung over her shoulder. The expensive designer one I bought her for Christmas. The same one that cost more than I spend on my truck payment. She looked stunning, even in casual clothes, and smiled like she didn't have a care in the world. Then she hit me with it. "Hey babe, would you mind driving us up there? Nate can't make it, something came up. It's only 5 hours there and 5 back. You'll have the whole weekend to yourself after." I hesitated. I'd been planning a fishing trip on Saturday with Ben, one of my closest friends. We hadn't seen each other in weeks, and 10 hours of driving in a single day. That's no small favor. But Jenna has this way of tilting her head, raising an eyebrow, softening her voice just enough, and just like that, I gave in. Again. I always do. By 10 a.m., I was behind the wheel of our SUV, Jenna in the passenger seat, and the 3 women packed into the back with their snacks, duffel bags, and flavored water bottles. The first hour flew by. Music was playing, they were chatting about TV shows and mutual friends I didn't know. I mostly kept quiet, focusing on the road. Somewhere around hour 3, they cracked open 2 pouches of pre-mixed margaritas. Not enough to be drunk, but enough to loosen them up. That's when the tone shifted. The conversation became more unfiltered. Brooke started complaining about her boyfriend, something about how he never listens, how she always has to repeat herself. Then Natalie chimed in with a joke about men needing a reward chart. That's when Jenna spoke. With a casual laugh, she said, "Honestly, Aaron's like a rescue dog. Feed him, pat his head, and he does whatever I want. He's easy to manage." Silence. 3 seconds of it, like someone had turned off the stereo and cut the oxygen in the car. Then they all burst out laughing. All of them. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My mouth was dry. My ears burned, but I didn't say anything. Just stared straight ahead and drove like nothing happened. But inside something snapped. 8 years. 8 years together. And that's how she sees me? A rescue dog? Someone she trained? The rest of the trip passed in a fog. I didn't speak unless directly spoken to, and even then my answers were clipped and cold. No one addressed what had happened. No apology, no check-in, no just kidding. Just laughter and then silence. When we finally pulled into the spa resort, a luxury place in the mountains with glass walls and valet service, they all hopped out excitedly. I opened the trunk to help with bags, but they'd already grabbed theirs. Jenna didn't even look back. Instead, as she walked away, she tossed over her shoulder, "Don't forget to wash the sheets while I'm gone. They still smell like your side of the bed." Laughter again. I stood there, outside that high-end resort, watching the woman I loved disappear into the lobby with her friends. Not even a thank you. 10 hours of driving, and all I got was a joke at my expense and a command to do laundry. The drive home was long. The music was off. Podcasts? No interest. Just me, the road, and a chorus of her words echoing in my head. He's like a rescue dog. I started replaying everything. Our relationship from the very beginning. All the little compromises that seemed harmless at the time. Like when I gave up Tuesday poker night because she said it was immature. Or how we always spent holidays with her family because mine was too chaotic. Even my year-end bonus that I wanted to use on restoring my old Mustang. Gone toward a new kitchen remodel I didn't ask for. When I got home around midnight, the house felt different. Cold. Not in temperature, but in presence. I walked from room to room, seeing everything with fresh eyes. There were no photos of my parents or siblings anywhere. Her family? Everywhere. My old books and childhood keepsakes? Stuffed in storage boxes. Every single visible detail of furniture, wall art, even the coffee maker was her choice. Nothing reflected me. I sat down at the desktop computer in the office. Jenna's laptop was on the table next to it. She always password protected it, but the browser was still open. And for the first time in our marriage, I crossed a line. I clicked. Her social media account was open. I didn't plan to go deep, just wanted to see what she'd been posting. But 2 hours later, I was still scrolling. Messages between her and her friends. Years worth. Jokes about how easy it was to get me to do things. Laughing about how she'd trained me to say yes after enough emotional distance. Screenshots of arguments we'd had sent with laughing emojis. Messages saying things like, he thinks he's in control because I let him make small choices. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch until the sun came up, rereading conversations where I was the punchline, the project, the obedient fool. By morning, I wasn't shaking anymore. Something had changed inside me, something calm, focused, deliberate. I picked up my phone and texted Ben. I need your help. By the time Ben showed up Saturday morning, I'd barely slept. My mind was still buzzing, but my body felt like it was running on autopilot, alert, yet numb. He brought coffee, the good kind from the place we used to frequent back when I still made time for friends. He sat across from me at the kitchen table. I didn't say much at first, just pushed my phone across the table. The screen was open to one of the conversations I'd found, Jenna mocking me with Natalie about how positive reinforcement and a guilt trip were all she ever needed to get me to roll over. Then scrolled through the messages in silence. I watched the expression on his face change from confused to stunned to quietly furious. I thought you were exaggerating, he finally said. But this? Damn, man. That was the confirmation I needed. I wasn't losing it. I wasn't being overly sensitive. I was finally seeing it all for what it was. We spent most of that Saturday going through everything. Emails, old backups, financial accounts, her hidden folders. Jenna had always insisted on handling the bills, said it stressed me out too much. At the time, I was grateful. She made it sound like a kindness. In hindsight, it was just another layer of control. It turns out we didn't have nearly as much saved as I thought. For over 3 years, she'd been slowly transferring money out of our joint account into a separate one in her name. Nothing huge, just $300 here, $400 there. Enough to slip under the radar. But it added up to over $20,000. I checked the credit cards next. She always claimed to pay them in full. But the statements told a different story. Purchases from designer boutiques, spa appointments, monthly subscriptions I didn't even know we had. She'd been making minimum payments while telling me everything was covered. And then came the kicker. A message exchange with Natalie from last Christmas. I had bought Jenna that overpriced overnight bag she'd taken on the spa trip. She'd made such a big deal about it, told me it was the perfect gift, even got teary when she opened it. But in the message she wrote, "Just opened Aaron's gift. Another expensive bag, guess he still thinks that's the only way to keep me happy." So predictable. And Natalie responded, "At least he's consistent. Frank got me a toaster." Jenna replied, "I trained him years ago. One designer gift equals guilt-free shopping for 6 months. Men are so simple." I actually had to stand up and walk out of the room. I was shaking again, but not from sadness this time. From pure rage. Not the kind that explodes, but the kind that boils silently, slow, steady, deadly. Ben followed me outside and just stood there with me in silence for a bit. "What are you going to do?" he finally asked. "I'm done being her pet." And just like that, a plan began to form. The first step was securing what I could. I went to the bank and opened a new account in just my name. I transferred half of the remaining joint balance over, not out of spite, but to protect it. I left enough in the joint account to cover the usual monthly bills. I'm not heartless. Just done being blind. Next, I went through all the recurring expenses. Turns out I'd been paying for 2 meal kit subscriptions, only one of which I ever used, along with her self-care boxes, salon memberships, and a yoga app she swore was free. I canceled everything that wasn't essential to the house itself. Then came the hard part, the locks. I called a locksmith and had every exterior lock on the house changed. I didn't feel bad about it. Not anymore. I wasn't locking her out of her life, I was reclaiming mine. I carefully packed up her clothes, makeup, shoes, and personal items, everything she'd need in the short term, and rented a small storage unit nearby. Paid the first month in advance. Then I texted the address to her sister, Madison, the only person in her family who ever treated me like a human being. No explanation. Just, her things are here. Paid for 30 days. She'll need her ID to sign in. I could have tossed her stuff on the lawn. Could have gone nuclear. But I didn't. I wanted dignity. Mine, not hers. By Sunday morning, I was a man on a mission. I drafted a short message with screenshots of the most brutal messages, no context, no extra commentary, and sent it to a small list, our closest mutual friends, my family, and a couple of people who'd always supported us as a couple. I didn't post anything online. I didn't start rumors. I just made sure the truth was there before Jenna could spin some story about how I'd snapped or abandoned her. The responses rolled in fast. Her friends were predictably defensive, accusing me of invading her privacy, acting unhinged, and blowing up a joke. Whatever. My family, on the other hand, was stunned but supportive. My sister called me crying, saying she always had a bad feeling about Jenna but didn't want to overstep. My mom asked if we'd consider counseling. I told her no. You don't go to therapy with someone who spent years laughing at your expense behind your back. That afternoon, Madison called. She'd gotten my message and seen the screenshots. She didn't ask questions. Just said, "I'm sorry. I always hoped she'd grow up. Let me know if you need anything." The last call I expected came from Jenna's brother, Chris. We hadn't spoken in over a year. He apologized. Said he'd suspected things for a long time, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the control. He told me he wished he'd said something sooner. I hung up the phone and stared at the ceiling for a long time. It's strange how quickly a life can unravel, or maybe how quickly the illusion of one does. That night I walked through the house again. Not with grief this time, but with curiosity. I rearranged the living room. Took down the cheesy quotes Jenna insisted on. Moved my old guitar out of the closet and into the corner where her indoor plant used to be. The house finally started to look like mine. Around 9 p.m. my phone buzzed. A text from Jenna. "Hey babe, having the best time. Miss you." I didn't respond. At 11:17 p.m. another one. "Why aren't you answering? Is everything okay?" I powered off my phone. I already knew what was coming. And I was ready. Monday morning I took the day off work. Not because I needed rest, I hadn't felt this awake in years, but because I wanted the house to finally feel like it was mine. I brewed my coffee with the cheap drip machine I'd had in college, the one Jenna made me replace with some stainless steel monstrosity because it clashed with the backsplash. I had it boxed up for years. I dug it out of the garage and plugged it in. It was perfect. I rearranged furniture, not for aesthetics, but for comfort. Took down the live, laugh, loved signs she insisted on, the framed photos where I always looked a little too posed, a little too controlled. Replaced them with old pictures I found in a storage box, ones where I was actually smiling. I changed the Wi-Fi password. Updated every streaming account. Removed her from my phone plan. Took her name off the utilities. By 4 p.m. my phone pinged a motion alert from the doorbell camera. There she was. Jenna stood on the porch in her oversized sunglasses and that blue dress she knows I always liked. Her hair was curled. Makeup flawless. Her expensive perfume no doubt lingering even through the closed door. She tried the key. It didn't work. She knocked once. Then again. Then started pounding. I didn't answer. Over the next 20 minutes, my phone lit up with missed calls and voicemails. At first, she sounded confused. Then irritated. Then panicked. The last message was softer, pleading. "I don't know what's going on, but please, can we talk?" I didn't reply. That night, I emailed my lawyer. I officially started the divorce process. The next morning, she showed up at my office. Mascara smudged. Hair messy. She looked like someone on the verge of a breakdown, and that was likely the point. She made a scene right in the middle of the lobby, loudly asking what she'd done wrong, why the locks had been changed, if there was someone else. People stared. I just looked at her and said calmly, "I'm not your rescue dog anymore." And I walked away. Her face crumpled like paper. I could feel her world collapsing behind me, but I didn't turn back. Not out of spite, just clarity. I'd spent 8 years turning myself inside out for a version of love that wasn't even real. That afternoon, she texted again. "We need to talk. Please. Just face to face. I don't want it to end like this." I agreed, not because I owed her anything, but because I had 8 years of truth laid out and I wanted her to see it. She arrived that evening, this time alone. No backup, no drama, at least, not at first. She was composed, almost eerily so, like she'd practiced every word in the mirror. She smiled, stepped inside, and tried to act like nothing had changed. She complimented the new layout, asked if I wanted wine, commented on how cozy the place felt now. I didn't play along. We sat at the dining table and I gestured to the stack of printed emails, bank records, and screenshots. She went pale. Then came the waterworks. She cried. Said it was all a misunderstanding. That the rescue dog thing was just a joke between friends. That I was blowing everything out of proportion. I didn't say anything. Just slid the financial statements across the table. Her story shifted in real time. First, it was a secret account for a surprise anniversary trip. Then it was emergency savings all women should have. Then when I showed her the transfers that aligned with her shopping sprees and girls' weekends, she snapped. "I deserve nice things after putting up with you for 8 years. And there it was. The mask gone. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the woman I used to think I'd grow old with. She wasn't crying anymore. She was angry, bitter, cornered. In the next 30 minutes, she cycled through every tactic I'd come to recognize over the years. Guilt, you're just throwing away everything we built. Seduction, brushing her hand across mine. Accusation, you had no right to go through my messages. Threats, I'll tell everyone you're unstable. My dad will ruin you in court. Desperation, please. We can fix this. I'll do anything. I sat still. Let her run out of ammo. And then I played a short audio clip from my phone, the recording from the car, her laughing and calling me easy to control with the others cackling in the background. She turned white, then red. Then something happened I didn't expect. The doorbell rang. It was Natalie. Alone. She looked nervous. Fidgety. Like she'd been standing outside for a while working up the nerve to come in. Jenna stood up, instantly furious. "What the hell are you doing here?" Natalie didn't respond to her. She looked at me. "I'm sorry. I didn't know how bad it was. I didn't see it until that car ride." She opened her purse and pulled out her phone. "There's more you haven't seen. From this weekend. And before." She handed it to me. Texts. Screenshots. Photos. Messages between Jenna and her boss. Flirtatious. Explicit. Planning to leave me once her promotion was secured. Mocking me. Saying I was a stepping stone to her next chapter. My stomach didn't even drop. I just laughed. Out loud. 8 years of love, trust, marriage, and I'd been a placeholder. Natalie was crying now. Quietly. Jenna was screaming, calling her a traitor. Telling her they'd been friends for 15 years. Natalie simply said, "Maybe we shouldn't have been." She left. Jenna tried one more angle. "Just give me access to the accounts until I get on my feet. We can separate amicably." I handed her a business card. "My lawyer will handle everything. You can forward anything through him." She stopped in the doorway. Her voice finally cracked, this time not with manipulation, but with something closer to real pain. "Did 8 years mean nothing to you?" I looked at her for a long time. They meant everything. That's why it hurt so much. Then I closed the door. The next 2 weeks were a blur. Not because nothing happened, but because everything did. The paperwork, the conversations, the unraveling of a life I'd spent nearly a decade building. I felt like I'd stepped out of a fog and into sharp daylight. Painful, but honest. I moved in with Ben temporarily. He had a spare room and more importantly, he didn't ask too many questions. Just let me crash, gave me space, handed me a cold beer when I needed one. Every night I sat on his porch in silence, processing. Not the loss of Jenna, but the loss of who I thought she was. The divorce process was as messy as I expected. Jenna tried everything, stalling, crying, threatening, begging. She told some of our mutual friends that I'd gone unstable, that I was having some kind of midlife meltdown. Others, she claimed I'd been cheating, gaslighting, cruel. But I had the receipts. Literally. When people started messaging me, confused or concerned, I calmly sent them screenshots. A handful of them apologized. A few doubled down in denial. Most just quietly stopped talking to her. She ran up another $2,000 on our joint credit card before I could shut it down completely. Spa treatments, clothes, takeout, and, ironically, therapy sessions. My lawyer added it to the list of claims. Jenna's final spree, as we now call it. Then came a call I didn't expect. Her father. I braced myself, waiting for the threats. But instead, his voice was low and tired. "I'm sorry, Aaron," he said. "We enabled her. We saw the way she treated people, especially you. I wanted to believe she'd change. I'm sorry you got caught in that." That conversation hit me harder than Jenna's betrayal. Because it confirmed what I had come to accept. This wasn't a breakdown. It wasn't a bad month. This was who she had always been. And I had ignored the signs because I wanted love to be enough. That weekend I went on a date. Just coffee. A friend of Ben's sister. Nothing serious. She knew my situation, I wasn't ready for anything, and she respected that. We talked about dogs, books, childhood summer trips. She didn't make me feel like a broken man. She just listened. And smiled. And when she laughed, it wasn't at my expense. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. Back at Ben's place, I started applying for apartments. Small ones close to work. Nothing fancy, just mine. My space. I thought about adopting a dog, a real one. Not as a symbol, just company. Something honest. Jenna, meanwhile, was unraveling. She tried to reach out again through Madison, her sister. Apparently, the boss she'd been cheating with? He ghosted her as soon as the divorce drama started. Classic. Jenna moved back in with her parents, who, to their credit, stopped shielding her. She sent me one last message a few days ago. "I messed up. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need closure. Please." I didn't reply. Because closure doesn't come from the person who broke you. It comes from yourself when you finally stop hoping they'll be someone they never were. Last night, I stood in what's now my apartment. A single bedroom, hardwood floors, nothing on the walls yet. But it felt like peace. I opened a box I hadn't touched in years. Inside were old pictures. Me and my dad working on the Mustang. My mom and I hiking. Polaroids from college. There was a version of me in those photos, freer, louder, happier. I pinned one on the fridge. A small, quiet rebellion against the years I'd spent decorating my life around someone else's preferences. Ben came by with pizza. We sat on the floor, talked nonsense, watched a movie. He asked if I missed her. I thought about it. "I miss who I thought she was," I said. "But not who she really is." He nodded. "That's growth, man." "I guess it is." So where does that leave me? In a good place, surprisingly. I'm learning to say no without guilt. To take up space without apologizing. I've started writing again, nothing serious, just journaling, but it helps. I call my family more. I see friends without checking someone's mood first. I exist again. And for anyone reading this, anyone who's questioning their own relationship, wondering if they're overreacting to something that should have just been a joke, let me say this. Trust the part of you that flinched. It flinched for a reason. You are not weak for loving deeply. You are not dramatic for wanting to be treated with kindness. And you are not wrong for walking away when someone laughs at your pain. For 8 years, I was someone's obedient dog. Loyal. Quiet. Trained. Not anymore. Now, I'm just me. And that's enough.